Hello everybody. Now, there's no denying that Cyberpunk is a bug-riddled mess right now, ranging from hard crashes to terrible pop-ins, and the game is still lacking in scope, from the magnitude of features that's missing from the game. Not to mention that many players have released their own Parker gameplay footage, clearly stating the fact. It should come as no surprise, however, that many of the members of the development team have already stated that Cyberpunk was released way too early and needed more time. I'm sure that many of them have their own input on the matter and, only want what's best for the game and the fans, but unfortunately they had very little control. I can only imagine what the game would have looked like on release day if the dev teams were left to their own devices to just making the game they wanted to make, but alas was hindered by the great rush. I mean, what happened to releasing it when it's ready? How can they sit there on these interviews knowing very well that it's nothing more than a complete fabrication, or worse, that these features do indeed exist, but there was never going to be enough time to get everything into the game? And why? Because the game was rushed out the door. Neither of these are a good sound strategy, and it's a crying shame. Now, with all of that said, Cyberpunk still has something special to offer. It must have, considering I've already played more than 100 hours and I still have loads of stuff to do. Also bear in mind that I do stream on Cyberpunk on Twitch at WatchForwardPlay, and I do mess around a lot. I get distracted pretty easily. But still, if I'm clogging in those amount of hours, then there has to be something there, right? Granted, a lot of those hours felt like torture at times. What with the game looking either too blurry, looking like a fine-grained mesh on roids, even with all the graphical features turned off. And some of those important features like draw distance, resolution, among a lot of those other features that's missing in the game. Now, I'm not expecting next-gen graphics on base hardware. That's just insane, but I was certainly expecting much better than this. And I think it's safe to say that we all were. But there are moments that it does come together, mostly in the main story quests. Even the characters at times look almost acceptable. But those moments are fleeting and marred yet again by those same graphical hitches and downgrades. While we're on the topic, the game, whether it be day or night, has this obvious shimmer which really messes with the whole look and feel of the game, making it look really bad at times. Now, all of this can change in the coming patches that are likely to drop in the next couple of days, these being the major 1 and 2 patches. Again, Marcin Nowinski, co-founder of CDPR, did state that they are focusing on fixing bugs and glitches, as well as working hard on the last gen hardware and to make the game enjoyable and playable on all platforms. I did do a complete dissection on the apology video, so make sure to check that out if you're interested. CDPR also released a roadmap to detail up-and-coming fixes and DLC, but none of it provides any real detail on exactly what these major patches will be fixing, other than bugs, glitches, and stability. I think what many people are more interested in, as am I, is are they going to improve on the graphical areas? Are we going to get a stable 10p that doesn't drop down to 720p? Not even mentioning the other stuff like cut content. So anyway, with bugs, glitches, cut content and graphics out of the way, what does Cyberpunk 2077 have to offer? Well, at its core, it's one hell of a game. It really is. It has moments of thrill, moments of sleek action. I like the fact they added the ability to dismember enemies. It has moments of deep storytelling, which so far, honestly, I haven't been disappointed in the slightest with. I like Keanu Reeves as Johnny Silverhand. To me, it's like the role was made for him. He adds this gritty and dark mood that really brings an edge to V's story and shapes how V interacts and gets along with him. I find it really well done. My only complaint would be that I would have liked the choices system to matter a bit more. I have a couple more, I have a couple more outcomes play out based on the dialogue options I chose, but still, as it is, it's still a gripping story from what I've played so far. Very dark. The world itself does feel rather empty though, yet bloated at times. Don't get me wrong, driving around at 20 miles an hour, sitting inside my fancy futuristic supercar, gazing around at all the neon signs and lights and passers-by, while the strange but fitting techno music vibe blasts away in my ears. I think it's pretty dope. But the thing is, there is countless missions and gigs and cop activities strewn all across the map, and as you progress, more are added on top of that, eventually making it hard to pinpoint exactly where to go or what to do next. Now that's not a bad thing necessarily, but I would have liked to see some other activities to join in on that isn't story based, like bowling or pool or riding the roller coaster. None of these things. Not even a Gwent-like card game that I'm sure was mentioned leading up to the release is even in the game. Also, there's nowhere to change your visual appearance in the game. No barbershop or anything of that type. You're pretty much stuck with the V you make at the beginning of the game. So, choose wisely, fellas. Gameplay on Night City, on the other hand, is basically you going from one mission to the next, doing gigs in between and upgrading your character. So it's very straightforward in that regard. And I do have to say that there's something about it that I really enjoy. There is something about finishing a mission or a side quest and instantly feeling like doing another one. And some of them can last quite a while, while others can be completed fairly quickly. Pan Am's missions for me so far have been the most annoying. A lot of fixes needed in our story quests. Anyway, the content for the story itself is certainly there and for the most part pretty enjoyable. Even upgrading V is pretty fun. Starting out pretty weak and then watching V grow stronger and better as the game progresses is quite a satisfying feeling, which in truth is what keeps me going back for more. Especially when playing on the more harder difficulty levels, which I highly recommend. There is a ton of skills to be had also, leaving you with the freedom to build your ultimate V however you want. From netrunner to weapon specialist to a close quarters berserker, the options are there aplenty. Out of my two playthroughs, I have two complete different builds. One I call my Trinity build, which is close quarters berserker badass bitch, respectively, armed with a mantis shock blades and cleanly shined prime tush. She can clear our room in seconds, leaving anyone and everyone chopped to bits, squeaking blood and body parts everywhere, while completing most missions without so much as a scratch. OP in a massive way, even on hard difficulty, but I like it that way. My Terminator build, physical brawler, looks so sleek that even Governor Schwarzenegger himself would approve. To boot, he's a super effective netrunner too. With this build, I rarely have to engage in combat. I just sit in my car, stay behind cover and just hack everyone in sight, one by one, and leave the last one or two for a pulverizing 5-knuckle shackle. With both of these playthroughs, my approach to the game was different. Sure, here and there, some different dialogue responses based on attribute point allocation, but the differences stayed mainly in the combat areas of the game. As far as story and that stuff goes, not much of a difference there. Weapons, well, there's a lot. For the most part, the gunplay feels satisfying enough. Nothing groundbreaking, but not terrible either. I do enjoy the smart weapons though. Locking on and firing away is super fun and doesn't get old. As far as crafting, quite honestly, I haven't really used it that much. They've tied the crafting to the skill system, and even unlocking the skills doesn't matter because you have to find the schematics for those weapons first, and that's only if you're lucky enough to come across them. On top of that, the cost of getting all the materials together to build just one of these legendary pieces can cost a fortune and take hours of gameplay. Albeit to say that some of these pieces do look pretty damn cool. So still with the time to look into, I think. Just haven't tried it out myself yet. Now, as I said, combat for the most part is pretty enjoyable, but that's not to say that it's without its flaws. The AI isn't of the smartest variety. They do at least duck and find cover now and again. Some are dumb as bricks and just run straight towards you. They also toss a grenade or two for good measure, but that's pretty much the extent of their capabilities. As far as hand-to-hand combat goes, however, it's definitely a miss for me, for sure. Wonky, awkward, and just not very well done. But, you know, it has its moments. So by now, we all know that Cyberpunk is by far not the game that was marketed for years on end, all the way up to release. We didn't get the game with all the bells and whistles that was promised to us, but there still is a game filled with hours of content here and huge potential. A game I've kind of become addicted to playing. Its flaws are glaring and unmistakable. Character choice is meaningless to a moderate degree. Yet, it brings me back to keep going, to keep playing, chasing that next gig, that next upgrade or skill point. I just hope that this game in time will be fixed and that it will be enjoyable to an acceptable state, but that remains to be seen. This one thing is certain though, and that is no matter what, that it can only improve and get better from here, especially if Valve steps in. Thanks for watching and listening, and drop your take on the game and all of these happenings. And are you perhaps drawn back to this epitome of torture that is Cyberpunk 2077 as I am? Or do you think the future patches for the rest of the year will get Cyberpunk to that place we all wish it to be? So, leave a comment guys and let me know. Until next time players, see you then. Mr. Play out.
We're in control.